Oh, hey, I'm so glad you made it to your midweek shot in the arm. And today's shot is suddenly. You ready? Let's go. Suddenly, simply put, means quickly, immediately, and unexpectedly. You guys already know where we're headed, straight to our instruction manual. And today's verses are going to come out of the book of Acts, chapter 16, verses 25 through 26, English Standard Version. And it reads, "About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened and everyone's bonds were unfastened." Amen. My God, it always amazes me how the Bible, written and proven so many years ago, is still so relevant today. And if this wasn't a shot, I would be reading the entire chapter. But because it is a shot, I am going to kind of talk about the memory that came to me just reading these two verses. Okay, so you know how sometimes you can hear, see, or sometimes even smell something and it brings back a memory, be it good or bad. Let me tell you, with these two verses, I mean, it just really shook me to my core. Now, I haven't physically been to jail. Okay, let's be clear. I haven't physically been to jail, but I vividly remember professing my faith at a time in my life where nothing, absolutely nothing seemed to be going the way I thought it should. It felt like trial after trial after trial after trial. Did I mention after trial? It just felt like it was one thing after another after another. And I remember thinking, okay, I am on this Christian journey wholeheartedly, and I feel like things are getting worse. Like, I didn't feel like things were getting better. I felt like they were getting worse. But I decided I am going to continue to profess my faith in God. And let me tell y'all, let me get myself together, because this memory, like I said, is so vivid. I remember picking up one of my homegirls who I used to hang with, right? I picked her up, and it was right in the heat of some foolishness popping off in my life. And she was like, "Girl, you still doing this Jesus talk? You still believing in that with all of this that's going on?" And she was like, "I would do X, Y, and Z if I were you." And right then, y'all, I was like, listen, X, Y, and Z has never served me well. Like, at all. I'm going to stick with my Jesus talk. And I remember dropping her off. And I was like, yeah, let me get some worship. Let me get some word in me. Let me, you know, at times when things are just happening and things are popping off, and you know that if I could just get to the Father, if I could just get a little bit more of him. And so for me, that was worship, that was music. And y'all, let me tell you what I put on. This is in the 90s, okay? Kirk Franklin, "My Life Is in Your Hands." After this, not while I'm talking, but after this, I want y'all to go and listen to that song. Kirk Franklin, "My Life Is in Your Hand." And so at first the CD was playing and I was just listening and I was vibing to it. And then I started singing it. And not just singing it in such a way that I knew my life was in his hands. Singing it like I knew that I could make it. Singing it like no matter what may come my way, that my life was in the Father's hand. And y'all, at that moment, suddenly, I felt something break. Suddenly, I felt the release. Suddenly, God was meeting me right at the point of my need. Suddenly, the Father showed up in the middle of the afternoon while I was riding in my car. That's the kind of God we serve. Do you need a suddenly to take place in your life? Do you need it? Come on, type in the comments. Do you need a suddenly? Oh man, our text says, about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them, and suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were open and everyone's bonds were unfastened. This is in the word. They weren't, now let me tell y'all about Paul and Silas. They weren't just politely thrown in prison. They were beaten, they were flogged about, and yet they sang hymns unto the Father. They were not concerned about how others viewed them. They were not concerned about any scrapes or bruises that they caught along the way, that they sustained while they were singing hymns, while they were praising him, while they were professing their faith. They were getting hit. They were getting hit. So just like some of us, we may be getting hit by life. We may be getting hit by things that are going on around us. But can I tell you, if you just profess your faith, just profess your faith, just like Paul and Silas. They did not change their mind about who God was regardless of the circumstances. And then suddenly happened. Suddenly happened. I believe there are some people watching me now and that will watch me later who need God to suddenly shake some things up, to suddenly loose them from depression, suddenly loose you from anxiety, sickness. I believe there's a suddenly for the very thing that you may be going through. I believe that. I believe there's a suddenly for your mindset. I believe there's a suddenly for your marriage. There's a suddenly for your children, suddenly for your job, suddenly for your school, relationships, your family. I believe there's a suddenly for your health. But do you believe? Do you believe that there's a suddenly with your name on it? So much so that it doesn't matter what happens, that it doesn't matter what may come your way. None of that matters because you know that your life is in God's hands. Come on, somebody. Y'all done got me excited. Y'all know when I start clapping, I get excited. But I believe there's a suddenly for you. Now remember, this shot is for you. So maximize your shot of suddenly. Until next time.